what did I tell you about the I guess the assumed audience for Tucker Carlson's Twitter Files 2, this time it's redundant, version of edited Jan 6 footage? That it is not aimed at anybody who gives a fuck or has a brain in their dome. It is aimed at sponge-headed fools who are easily convinced of at the slightest turn. Just need it. There's somebody, please throw me a bone. Please throw a life preserver to me in this sea of actual information. I need somebody tow me to Bullshit Island. And Greg Kelly, that's not the only one. This is called January 6th, fixed. By the way, I'm glad it was fixed. I think they have cleaned up a lot of the damage done by the rioter, so it's nice of him to point that out as well. And then there is, Ben Shapiro, who seems confused. And as somebody who has sparse beard growth, I understand. I've never bailed on shaving in the middle of it, though, and called it a style. But I mean, hey, who am I? Who am I to tell him? And then, of course, this dipshit, which again, are these fuckers ever going to learn? Are they ever? Because, folks, if I may, I mean, this should be, let's see, we'll take this guy out and we'll add this guy and we'll click on this thing and then we'll add that. And then, oh, dear God, look what's happening. Just a little bit up like that. And, oh, that's a shame. You probably just, if you're a Trump, you really shouldn't stand in front of or wear green anything. It's just not smart. It is not a smart thing to do, you big dum-dum. It is not. I don't recommend it ever. But anyways, we'll be hearing from Don in just a little bit. But until that time, we'll play nice. All right. So, all right. Well, that said, chat room, you good? How you doing? Hi, ho, hello, hello. Oh my God, the amount of people and hello and everybody. Good Lord. Oh my God, the show is huge now and I can't even handle it. Thank you. Oh, I love some green screen. I've spent so much time. I mean, you can see the little hue around my my head, as it were. Yeah, I mean, I prefer it. Not, partially because I'm halfway between I don't need to hear any shit from Room Raider, and also, why does anyone who, and influencers, you call anyone who calls themselves that, all right, are you nuts? Are you a crazy person? Do not show what your house, the interior of your house looks like as best you can, unless they're just walls behind you. Especially if there's a window or a fucking door. Maybe I've just watched too much true crime. Just don't do it. Do not do it. Volume? Oh, the volume's fairly high. Like, if I get any, I guess I could tweak it a touch. Maybe a little bit that. Is that better? How about that? Hopefully, because I get carried away, and then you know what happens. All right. First, let's go to Greg, because, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, this is Greg Kelly, the most miserable man on the internet. Now, before we start Greg's diatribe on, it was January fixed. Get it? Not sixth. It's fixed. 6 fifths. It kind of vaguely rhymes, but not. As my dad would say. So, before we get into the fact that Greg is a sponge-headed, desperate, sad little man, I would like to, I guess I would like to address that all of these folks there's an extra danger to what Tucker Carlson is doing. Beyond the lies and the propaganda and the editing and all that kind of shit. Beyond that. Because in many ways, While January 6th and the actions taken on that day were the product of Donald Trump saying the election was fixed and it was rigged and blah, 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 and they were all mad about that, what actually drove them to the steps that day was not necessarily his direct blather, but a combination of his direction, his insistence that they come there in the first place, and his, telling them they're responsible for fixing it, but also the multiple disappointments those people felt, because the emotional driver that brought the Jan 6ers to Washington, D.C. that day, and indeed drive them to the violence that we see when they do carry it out, is because fuckheads like Mike Lindell and Donald Trump and Lin Wood and Sidney Powell and any number of idiots out there set them up like, he's going to be reinstated. Oh, we're going to have a new election. We got like all these moments where they were like, he's going to be back in office in 6 weeks, in a month. He even admitted it in that fucking speech we did Monday, that people in that room with him were talking about the fact that he was going to be president again within a few weeks of the beginning of January, after January 21st. They were just going to fix it and he'll be back in office. And he seemed to think that was a real thing. It ain't. It never was. But if he got his hopes up like a fucking moron, imagine what these dipshits went through. And the problem is, and we see this with the slacktivist class, we see this with like faux-gressives and basically angry leftists who won't take a win ever. We see the same thing where they get so disappointed they slip into either violence or nihilism. And that's exactly what happened here. And guess what? It's going to happen again. Tucker Carlson has nothing to add to this conversation except lies and setting these fuckers up for another fall. And that's some creepy shit. It's a mistake. It's dangerous. And like, am I worried about Greg Kelly? No. Greg Kelly is, he's effectively self-neutered all the time. But there are those in this crowd that are still aching for the great day of the rope or the big change that's going to come, that's going to, I guess, insert Donald Trump back in the White House. I mean, there's still fuckers who think that Trump signs all the bills and Biden is in a fake White House that is on this, that's built by an Amazon set designers. No shit. They're lunatics, but they're ambulatory lunatics with cars and jobs and extra cash who can buy plane tickets and show up in places. That's the concern. Okay, so we're going to see a rehash, and I don't doubt he's going to play the same footage we've seen. So I will skip past that when it comes up because I've already covered it, and then just see his take on it. But ladies and gentlemen, we present to you Raymond G. Kelly, the second generation New York royalty, with his take on how January 6th was a setup. And by the way, again, before we even start this, if that's the case, January 6th, that this guy, and we know how much this guy loves Ashley Babbitt. He loves, that was his wife. She was going to be his wife. And then she died, and he's pining for her forever. That was his dream girl. And it was just, he would have had a happy life had it not been for somebody, denying him that reality. This guy, in saying that, Thibbies and other people instigated it. He's going to go into Ray Epps and all that shit because they'll play all the same clips. But they were all pushed into doing it. This guy, he didn't go there of his own free will. It was a fucking mind. He was mind fucked MK Ultra style. Same thing with Ashley Babbitt. And so the entire premise of this video, which is 14 minutes long, buckle in. By the way, I reserve the right to bail out if he's boring. But Greg Kelly, with this video, already is making the case that Ashley Babbitt died for nothing and died a sucker. Just keep that in your mind as you're listening to his words.
It was January fixed. We're going to call it January fixed, not
Well, that's what it was. It was the fix was in. It was never going to succeed. We almost had it. By the way, this makes no sense.
January 6th. It was January fixed. Maybe we can make that a thing.
No, you're not going to make that a thing. That's silly.
Because it was a total setup. Now, for 2 years, this show.
That's right. Yes. Translation, Ashley Babbitt, Roseanne Boylan died a sucker, and the FBI was down there just trying to get maggots, desperately trying to get maggots to attack police officers because they wouldn't normally.
Has been asking some basic questions about that day that nobody else seems to be terribly interested in.
Yes, Greg, you are tragically basic.
Who left the doors open for?
No one left the doors open.
For the protesters to just come on in.
Nobody left the doors open. As a matter of fact, in the footage that you're going to cite from Tucker Carlson, somebody kicked them open.
Why isn't the killer of Ashley Babbitt being prosecuted?
Because he's a police officer and he was doing his job. She was bashing her way through a door that was barricaded, trying to get to members of Congress with a mob that was saying, hang Mike Pence. Pence, go fuck yourself.
Who is Ray Epps?
Ray Epps is a maggot who apparently has a line that he won't cross. He'll do petty theft, but he won't do armed robbery. That's apparently his limit.
And how is it that the Capitol Police could have failed so miserably in?
Because they were set up by Donald Trump to not expect a mob. Because had he put in his teleprompter and in his prepared speech that day that they were going to march down there, he would have had to get a permit, and that permit would have cued the Capitol Police that a giant group of people were actually going to come down there instead of a little group from the secondary stage having a little gathering on the steps. All those people that Trump was going to send his fucking people and go with them. That meant they would need more security. More than likely, those big gates that we saw after the fact would have been up beforehand. That's why Trump set them up.
Their basic job, securing the Capitol building.
Because they didn't know what was coming because Trump wanted it that way.
Those questions off limits for not only the January 6th committee, but for the corrupt and incurious media as well, who are.
By the way, what part of those questions are, quote, off limits? Ray Epps has been discussed and rediscussed 5 fucking times just in the last year. He's fucking trended 5 times last year that I mean, maybe more than, but
apparently content to be lied to or are willing to lie themselves.
Well, it is the Newsmax mission statement.
Not me and not Tucker Carlson.
Good choice of pictures. I can tell you love him dearly because you had somebody scroll through the footage and find something that didn't look like he was just finding out that he didn't get the scholarship as he's looking at his grades posted on the board at prep school.
Tonight, we're grateful for what Tucker Carlson did and maybe a little bit envious, but the important part is the information, is the story.
And the edits. The important part is the propaganda, is the manipulation of the footage, and that's the key. We view what the January 6th committee did as manipulation, so we want our shot at manipulating it our direction because, as Rudy Giuliani says, truth isn't truth.
House Speaker McCarthy, Kevin McCarthy, granted Tucker access to thousands of hours of security camera footage from the Capitol on January 6th that
But he wouldn't give it to you? Maybe it's because you got kicked off DirecTV and stuff. Maybe he's afraid of AT&T. Does Kevin McCarthy get money from AT&T? I think he does. Ouch.
Blows up the Democrat narrative of that day, that this was
no, it doesn't.
Worse than 9/11, that it was.
By the way, the only reason it qualifies in any way, I believe, as worse than 9/11 is that it was fucking Americans doing it. Also, the attacks on the trade centers, while dramatic and dangerous and deadly, we don't run our government in the World Trade Centers. That's why. It is definitely worse when your own family turns on you. Wouldn't you say?
It was an insurrection. It wasn't. It
was a failed insurrection. Hashtag failed insurrection.
Was a setup. Now, first.
Now, Well, if it was a setup, again, the only argument that makes that make sense is that maggots, to their core, are dough-headed fucks who will follow anybody that tells them to do something violent or illegal. How is this a compliment? Can you imagine if in defense of, instead of just saying it's wrong to burn down a Target or the violence around that Antifa was doing in Portland, hashtag rip Portland, instead of decrying it, as Biden did, which is one of the reasons he got elected, and the people around him did, instead they said it was actually a setup. Republicans tricked our pale, white, black-clad youth into reading commie manifestos and then running down the street and burning Starbucks. It was a trick. They didn't want to do it. They didn't want to throw Molotov cocktails. They were lured into it.
Remember this guy, the horns guy?
Yes, the horns guy. Yes, call him that.
Now, I've said for 2 years, he did not break anything. He did.
Greg, I know you're not going to watch my long-form takedown of the J6 footage bullshit from Tucker Carlson, but at least you got to know this, that anybody who was in the Capitol that day that was not supposed to be there got in there stepping over or in the blood of their fellow maggots and police officers. They were in there as the result of violence.
Not hurt anybody.
No, he just benefited from other people hurting someone.
And at times, he seemed like he was actually assisted by Capitol Police.
It does seem that way if you watch edited video with no audio. And also have no respect for cops who are trying to de-escalate a situation in a situation where there are literally hundreds / thousands of people all around them and in the building and moving through the building that mean members of the Congress and the vice president in particular harm that day.
Helping him along.
Yeah. Because rather than jump on this lunatic and get poked with his fucking horns, they just followed him around. All right, you seen it? Get the fuck out of here. We'll arrest you later. It's not like you can hide.
And now we know he was.
No, he wasn't. Same shit.
Virtually every moment of his time inside.
All right, we saw this part. We've been over it.
Who were tried to slow.
Explanation for that. This.
Hold on,
Not one of them even tried to slow him down.
Right. Because they knew who he was. They could arrest him later. He was not currently engaged in any violence. But God knows if he's got a fucking pull wire in his fucking backpack to blow some shit up because he looks like a goddamn lunatic. And until, if they can keep him ratchet down, or until he decides to ratchet himself up, this is the best course of action.
How do you explain that?
I just did. It's not hard. Cops do this all the time. You ever seen cops? And I know people in the chat room are going to go, after they shoot everybody. Jesus Christ. There are a billion police interactions with human beings all the time, and you only see the bad ones. The good ones, cops spend hours in a lot of cases talking crazy people down from scary shit.
There is no explanation for that.
Yes, there is. The problem is your porous brain, as full of holes as it is, apparently the truth is square and every hole in your brain is round.
The Capitol Hill police failed us and may have been complicit in
Fuck you.
some of this.
Complicit. Look at the fucking smug look on this dumbass's face. And again, I will recover this again. But he's calling Capitol Police traitors because they weren't violent to this guy. Now, if they were violent to him, and he started, any of the stuff we hear from people when they're taken down regularly, they would go, see, nobody cares when it's a white guy. They would be all up in that shit. You know it. You know they would.
Next.
Chansley understood that Capitol.
Oh, this is the part where we saw that he tries to do trick editing to trick you that two different sets of doors are the same doors.
Police
And I guarantee Kelly's going to fall
were his
for it.
allies. Video shows him giving thanks for them in a prayer
See that door?
on the floor of the Senate. Watch.
Not the door to the floor of the Senate.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving me.
See those windows? See the windows on that door? See that? See that? Never mind that the doors open in. We'll get to that later. You see 4 panes on that, on any of those? Any of them. Any of them. What you saw were utility doors for office areas, and these are the doors to the chamber. They're very ornate and fancy pants.
Inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us into the building.
They didn't allow you in. You beat them. The people you are with physically attacked the police officers. You're in there because you stepped over their blood. And like I said, check his fucking moccasins. I'm going with in.
Isn't that amazing?
No, it's not amazing. It's fucking stupid. He's a deluded asshole. So are you.
Now, Jacob Chansley's mother will be joining us soon. This is evidence, by the way, we don't believe.
He's a grown man. Folks, I got to tell you, if you are over, what, 23, 24, what's the outside age? If you're 27 and your parents need to be interviewed on television because you fucked up and landed yourself in jail. And again, aren't we the snowflakes? Aren't they the fuck your feelings, bootstrappers, individual freedom, tough, rugged individualists? This motherfucker's mom is coming on Newsmax. His mom. Now, why is mom? Why? Why is mother? Because he doesn't have any other relationships. That's another red flag. If the only fucking person they can bring on that will do some sort of kiss-ass cleanup for you is your fucking mom, you screwed up.
His lawyer had access to. Jacob Chansley is in prison tonight serving.
Please, God, please, Lord, shine down your rays of goodness upon us. Please deliver unto his defense lawyer the edited video that Tucker Carlson put. Please allow his attorney and the people paying for his appeal to be sponge-headed enough to attempt to put edited video into an appeal and get him sprung from jail. Lord, please allow for that so that the prosecution can ask for the unedited video, get it, and get testimony from the officers who are next to him, who will easily testify, so that he gets, Lord, another 6 months because of Tucker and this dumb motherfucker.
A 3 to 4 year federal sentence. How are they going to explain this?
It's just, whew. Again, like I said, this is Tucker setting up dough-headed motherfuckers like Greg Kelly, who is in turn setting up his audience for a big disappointment.
All right. Next, the late Brian Sicknick, Capitol Hill police officer.
Oh, this is the idea that he didn't die that day. Now, I don't know anyone, and maybe somebody in the chat. Is there a chat room? Help me out here. Love you guys. Is anywhere in this? Does anybody ever remember anyone thinking or saying that Sicknick died during the actual event there? Because I remember him, the whole story of him having a stroke that night and having to be unplugged the next morning or the next, day. Like, I don't remember fucking anybody saying he died there on the spot. Yes, and you're absolutely right, by the way, about Bill. Jacob Chansley pleaded guilty because there's a lot more footage some of which he filmed him fucking self. So, yeah, he died the next day. Everybody, like, nobody said, oh my God, he was murdered on the floor of the rotunda that day. Like, fucking no one. And so, this is beyond a straw man. Also, interestingly enough, they haven't changed the chyron under his face. That's a weird choice.
Who died?
Actually, it's not a choice. Someone there is just lazy.
The day after, on January 7th. Now,
yes, we all know this.
First, we were lied to and told MAGA rioters threw a fire extinguisher at his head.
No, they did.
That was not true. Another
No, they did.
lie, but
no. All right, hold on. Hold on, 1 second. Let's clarify. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may, that's the fire extinguisher. Capitol rioter hits officer with fire extinguisher. Wah fucking la. Secondly, his stroke, it is entirely reasonable that he had precursors for a stroke as a relatively healthy guy walking around, as many people do. But what triggered it, what cut it loose, what caused that clot to break free, move to his brain, incapacitate, and ultimately kill him, considering the day he had been through, while the cause of his death was natural, it was natural in the category of, I have a friend who died of natural causes. He got shot, and naturally, he died.
Lie that helped mythologize and glorify the...
And glorify. Because there is no glory in simply doing your job well as a peace officer. None. You make fucking widgets, according to Greg Kelly. His father was the New York police commissioner. This motherfucker, bring your goddamn dad down on this show and explain to him how this guy who died the day after the riot, the insurrection, the riot, the fucking maggot riot, on the day of it, regardless of whether you think he died due to what happened that day, in his normal procedure was not worthy of respect, or in this case, glory.
The Democrats' version of January 6th. Joe Biden even attended the memorial service for Officer Sicknick. But Officer Sicknick was alive and well on January 6th at the time when we were later told he was dying.
First of all, alive and dying are variants of the same thing. Secondly, well, we'll see. I want to see this footage.
Here is surveillance footage of Sicknick walking in the Capitol after he was supposedly murdered by the mob outside.
Okay, no. Again, listen to the line there. I mean, again, this is absolutely aimed at this dumb motherfucker. This is aggravating. I got news for you, though. In some ways, if indeed they, if they exhumed the body and looked at it again from the point of view of, trauma or a chemical relationship, which they may or may not have looked at, into his death that caused the stroke later, or some, alignment with that they might find out later. Technically speaking, if somebody poisons someone and the poison takes a while, that person has been murdered. It is an attempted murder until they aren't helped. but the act of murdering them has already taken place. If they survive because somebody gets them the antidote, it becomes an attempted murder, but not for lack of trying on the part of the murderer. If someone gives someone else an injury that later kills them, how many people in the chat room love them some special victims unit or some criminal intent? We love Vincent D'Onofrio around here. What a lovely, lovely man. We even love the years where Jeff Goldblum filled in. What are you saying? Because, sorry, he's not dead yet. He's still alive. How are you losing it? No. Yes, I know. It's a crazy thought, right? It's still murder. If you ever seen, I forget which, there was a movie, there was a plot where a guy had attempted to murder his wife. And they couldn't get him on poisoning her or whatever he did to her. But she was on life support. And so he managed to get away with it. And then he chose to unplug her, and they got him for murder because he set up the situation that put her in there in the first place so they could get around double jeopardy that way because he had murdered her. He ultimately ended up killing her in the end by being the person who pulled the plug in the situation where he had set her up. She hadn't died yet, so he slipped the attempted murder charge, right? Reversal of fortune, is that it? Fractured? Yes, that's what it was. You're right. Fractured. Easy Network. Thank you. Yes, that's exactly it. And the reason is because he murdered her. She just hadn't succumbed to the injury that had murdered her yet. And attempted murder and murder are two different things. That's right. Can we pull the plug on Kelly? I think we're probably going to, because it's going to be a lot of repetitive shit. I mean, we're going to see these same repeating bullshit. And by the way, let's jump past this, because we've seen this footage before. All right, here. And then watch, and let's just see Greg, if I can take it, shit on Sicknick one more time.
Do that, then their dishonesty knew no limits.
No limits regarding January 6th or just about anything else. It's incredible.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean... Like, they'll tell you they don't have a penis, and then you're in the middle of making out with them, and then suddenly, ba-boing. Not taking that bus again.
Prince William of England even sent a letter
of England
of sympathy to the Sicknick family.
The dude died. He died of a stroke. The day after he went through hell in a situation where they had no backup because Trump set them up to fail.
That's fine, but under the false impression that Sicknick was killed by MAGA, that is a lie.
All right. I mean, read the letter. What the fuck does that even mean?
Now, eventually, the Capitol Police admitted that Officer Sicknick died of natural causes. We'll have more on that in a little bit, and how they're trying to explain and excuse their way out of this one. There is no excuse.
Yes, there is. You can absolutely... If anybody has the precursors for a stroke or an aneurysm in them at any given time. And you can absolutely track back to an extraordinary situation, high adrenaline, injury, all kinds of shit that could lead to that stroke being triggered. Would the stroke have happened eventually? Maybe. Would there have been a time to remedy that stroke beforehand? During a checkup a month later, could he have perhaps recognized the potential for it, taken, steps to mitigate it? Of course. But when it happened and that had happened can be absolutely tied. And the idea that he naturally died of a stroke the day after something like that, and it's just like, well, then fuck, nothing happened. I mean, what the fuck? And then fuck that guy. The shrug attitude, and by the way, this is the focus. One of the reasons Sicknick is the focus is because you can't go after, hold on. Here's why. You want to know why they're focusing on Sicknick so much? Let's see. You want to know why? You want to know why this motherfucker is focused so much on Sicknick? So they don't have to talk about this guy or any of the 140 plus officers that were injured that day. The fact that Sicknick died the next day, and they can dunk on the idea while creating a straw man entirely that anybody said he was murdered on site during the fucking thing when no one did. I mean, no one of consequence. And certainly no one in the quote unquote mainstream media said that Sicknick was dead on the day, or went, oh my God, we've got an officer down and rumor, like word is he's died, blah, blah, blah. Like fucking no one. Anybody? All right. Remember this guy though? Hear that guy yelling, stop the steal? Look at him bleeding from his fucking mouth. That's why this fucker wants to talk about Sicknick. This is why this rancid son of a bitch wants to talk about Sicknick's death as a way of shrugging it off. Same fucking reason Tucker Carlson does it. So that they have something to show besides this. And like, you want to talk about the fucking manipulation? There's literally making up a fucking lie that people were saying he was murdered on the day. Tucker says it. No one fucking said that. And Greg Kelly, same thing.
Next, Senator Josh Hawley, Republican of Missouri.
Hey, thanks for showing the exact reason why everybody made fun of him running. Because it wasn't that he was running. Everybody was trying to get the fuck out of there. The difference was this motherfucker did that first. That's why. Josh Hawley running is funny because earlier in the day he was like, I'm with you people. And then later he's like, motherfucker.
Who would object to the counting of electoral votes on January 6th. And under the Electoral Count Act of 1887, that's entirely legal. No.
Right. Unless you are doing it not because you genuinely believe there's a reason to do it, but so that you can buy time for troops to show up and stop the process so that you can aid and abet the taking over of the government in an illegal coup. In that case, it's illegal. Just saying.
No matter how much the left tries to say that's insurrectionist behavior. The left tried to say that Josh Hawley...
By the way, that you do something is not the whole story. Why you're doing it. If you're holding a door for someone to be nice, or you're holding a door for someone because you know someone's out there to hit them with a bat, and that's the signal to let them know this person is coming out, you're still just holding the door for someone. That's not illegal.
Retreated.
Just fucking, oh God. His dad was fucking police commissioner.
Like a coward from the riot he started. Another lie.
The committee released video of...
Right. Again, same shit. He's running. No, it's exactly that point. Hold on.
Respect us, and that's fine. I feel better without it, and you should too.
Yes. Greg, no one respects you in the morning because you're always alone and you have no self-respect. That's all we need of Greg Kelly. That's his leading argument.